good morning. I am driving south out of Bentonville on my way to Newport, Arkansas, with a plan to go see the old building which was home to Sam Walton's very first store. And it's interesting because we all know about Sam Walton's Five and Dime store. It was Walton's Five and Dime, the very first Walmart, if you will. It was Walmart's first store in the sense that it was the first store that Sam Walton owned. But it was not the first store that Sam Walton ran. Sam Walton actually started his career running a Ben Franklin franchise store. The franchise was located in Newport, Arkansas. And there's really not a lot of talk about that anymore. If you read Sam's book, you'll know about it. And there's a few grainy pictures of that original store which do exist. That being said, though, there really isn't a whole lot of thought or time given to that store, which is an important part of Walmart history, really. And it's 4 hours away from the hustle and bustle and circus, which is Bentonville, Arkansas. So if somebody were to come to town and they were going to see all the things related to Walmart, they would certainly see Sam's Five and Dime. They'd certainly see the interesting things there are to experience around home office and around Northwest Arkansas. But they might miss that old building that was once a Ben Franklin store 4 hours southeast of Bentonville in a small town. There's also a little museum which exists inside the local Walmart store there. So my intent is to go down there and see the little museum of sorts that's set up inside that Walmart store and visit the little town itself. And I believe that there's a bank currently residing in the building that was once that Five and Dime store. But my goal is to take a picture of that building and then work on upscaling the old grainy pictures of the original Five and Dime, the original Ben Franklin store, and then do a nice before and after presentation to kind of add a little bit of a highlight to something that I don't think is necessarily focused on enough when we talk about the early beginnings of Walmart. Anyways, I figured for today I will post this video probably tonight when I get home, but I just wanted to talk about how you can always say, well, I'm going to get around to doing something eventually, right? It's so easy to do that. Yeah, you have something on your bucket list. You're like, yeah, I'm going to do that one of these days. And then there's those times when you think, well, maybe I could do that now, but I don't know. Maybe I'll do it some other time. And then the window closes and it passes, and you don't. And life is pretty long. There's a lot of things we can do in our lives, but it's also pretty short in the sense that we only have a little while to make a difference. We only have a little while to do things that are interesting to us. And it really weighs on me when I think about going to a place that I haven't been before. It's maybe not an important place. It's not something that's going to be life-changing per se, but it is something that has been on the bucket list. It's something I want to go do. It's something I want to see. And I think about how if I go, like for example, making this 4-hour drive down to Newport, I'm going to go to a little town, and I'm going to see a place that I haven't seen before. And the probability is that I will never see that place again in my life. Now, it's possible. It's possible. possible that I will go back there sometime. It's possible if I'm driving through on my way to Memphis or something, I'll make a detour and go over there. But I don't know that. The likelihood of me ever getting in my car again and saying, why don't I go drive to a little out-of-the-way town in the Arkansas Delta, 4 hours away from home, it's pretty low. So what does that mean if I go do that today? It means that every inch of road needs to be a special experience. It means that when I get there and I look around that little town, I want to soak it in and I want to come away with something meaningful, because there's a real good chance I won't ever see it again. This is that one moment in my lifetime when I'm going to be able to see that. And our lives are filled with those kinds of moments. Moments when you're seeing something that you haven't seen before, or you're in a place you haven't been before, and you're never going to pass that way again. Even if we do pass that way again, we don't pass that way again as the same person we were in the past. Maybe that's getting a little bit too esoteric. But the message applies no matter where you are. We need to make the most out of every moment, because we're never going to have this moment again. We can go back to the same places we were before too, but we can never go back to the old times that once were. We talk a lot about Mandela effects and that weird sense of a timeline shift, that odd feeling that maybe something weird happened in 2020 when COVID happened and maybe the timeline shifted. I've been intrigued by this notion that we all seem to have this common belief that Stouffer's made stovetop stuffing. I know, to me, I feel like Stouffer's stovetop stuffing is a really common thing that I've heard many times. So much that if you asked me what Stouffer's actually makes, I would struggle to mention anything other than stuffing. And yet, if you look it up, there's no reference of Stouffer's ever making stovetop stuffing. It's always been a craft product. So it's become a phenomenon because so many people seem to have this shared memory of something that didn't actually happen. Is that a real thing? I don't know. Maybe it's just a oddity of human life manifesting itself, or maybe there is something to it, that we live in some kind of an odd simulation of sorts, and there's glitches here and there when we can see through the fabric of space-time from one version of reality into another, or something like that. Maybe there is a sort of a memory residue from some sort of different version of our existence that leads from one space into another. I don't know. But what I do know is that the moments we have are precious, and we should make the most out of every one of them. We should celebrate the lives that we have and the experiences that we have, because we're never going to really have those experiences again. And when you realize that, then it's not just about making the most of a road trip or something like that. It's about making the most of everything. And here I see a great segue into the question of putting things off. The question of whether you should save a bucket list item for some other time. Now, it's true, we can't do everything all at once. I don't have time to do everything I want to do in my life today. But there are things you can do today. And you could also say, well, maybe I'll do it next week. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Or maybe sometime next year. And your life can go by pretty quickly. And before you know it, you will never have done those things. It'll always be, I thought about it. You know, I once told somebody something along the lines of, I thought about getting that for you. I believe it was my old HR partner back in Montana. She liked stuff that had anything to do with moose. So if I saw anything moose related, I would always think of her. And so one day I saw something moose related, and then I was talking to her shortly after that, and I said, oh, hey, Carla, I saw this moose thing at the store the other day, and I thought of you, and I almost got it for you. And she said, well, almost got it doesn't actually mean you did get it, so, you know, there's that. And, you know, it's so true, though. We go through our lives having these almost moments. Almost went on that road trip. Almost went to go visit somebody. Almost picked up the phone to make a connection. Almost sent out that invitation. And what weighs on my heart with this is that thought that maybe there's things we're supposed to do in our lives. Maybe there's some kind of a hand of providence which guides us. Maybe there's something deeply meaningful about this story of human existence, this thing we're supposed to be part of. And maybe if we always put off those things that pop into our head as something that we want to do, we inadvertently close a door on something that we're supposed to be open to. That's something I think about from time to time, and that's why sometimes I embrace a certain spontaneity. Like, for example, this morning I woke up, took my shower, and I thought, you know, yeah, I could go play some Anno 117. I could work a little bit more on my Skyrim playthrough. I could play some Cities Skylines. There's a lot of stuff I could do on the computer. And I am off tomorrow, so I do intend to make some time for gaming tomorrow, because despite being an avid gamer, I also have to confess that I don't actually game as much as maybe I imply I do, because so many times I'd rather hit the road or go for a walk or something like that. And so gaming, it's an important part of my life, but it's not necessarily the biggest part in terms of how I spend my time. And along those lines, there's also that nagging feeling that I probably need to rein in my scrolling time. Like, I've cut out Reddit. That seems like it's been a good thing. And I don't know, to be honest, if I want to completely cut out Reddit, or if I just want to kind of make a point to not spend as much time on it. Because sometimes I find Reddit can be a toxic kind of a space, but it also can be a useful kind of a space, right? Like, I couldn't tell you how many times if I am just Googling something to try to find out, like, how do you do this or that thing, Reddit is where I actually find the answer, because that's a great place where people can connect and people can share information. And so the more I take a break from Reddit, the more I realize it's not really that Reddit is a bad space. Like, it has negative elements just like anything else. And then, of course, if you're trying to cut back on how much time you're scrolling, that's just a mindfulness thing, because no matter what it is you cut out of your life, there's always going to be something else that can jump in to take up that space, that screen time, right? Like whether it's reading Google News or reading Reddit or scrolling through LinkedIn or scrolling through YouTube, there's always going to be a distraction there that can keep you from doing other things. So it's not really any one platform. It's more about working on you than it is about working on, like figuring out how to remove certain social media things out of your life. And to touch on that, I really think like the social media that I have walked away from that I don't want to go back to is probably Facebook, Instagram. And the reason why that is different is not because of how much time it takes up. It's not about anything other than the type of connections you make there. The people that you add on Facebook tend to be the people who are folks that you have known in your personal life, in real life, and that's what's toxic about it. It's a platform where people who probably should build their networks in person are existing in that space, and so there's like meddling and there's snooping and there's measuring up and there's all of that kind of stuff, like let me post a picture of my vacation and see if I can make my real life friends jealous of it, or somebody breaks up with somebody and then they passive aggressively post things that are directed toward all of their friends, but in reality it's directed toward that one person in their life that they wanted to poke or prod at, right? Like things like that. Or somebody that's just nosy, and so they're going to add somebody not because they care, not because they want connection, but just because some part of them wants to be snoopy, right? Those are the kinds of things that they're not excellent, right? So I think walking away from a platform like Facebook, especially when you factor in just how much very, I guess, intimately personal stuff is collected on that platform by a company which I don't know that I would really be entirely supportive of. Like Facebook, Meta, I don't know. I'm not saying they're evil. I'm just saying I don't know if I really trust them. And when you look at how a platform operates, it's also pretty telling how they gatekeep. Like, if you go to Reddit and you wanted to read something on Reddit and you weren't a member of the platform, you can totally read anything that you want on Reddit. It's absolutely easy to view anything you want to view on Reddit without even signing in. But if you go to Facebook, that's much more proprietary. If you find a post on Facebook and you aren't signed in, it's going to make it very difficult to view that content at all. And then it's going to try to push you towards signing in or creating an account, which is free. And then, of course, you would have access to all of those communities and all of that information and stuff like that. But the point is, Facebook is really, really determined to get everybody to be on their network. And like during COVID and during a lot of the different political stuff that's happened over the last few years, we saw a lot of really sketchy stuff happening where people would post something and then get censored or get in trouble or, have some kind of negative ramifications associated with their own personal expression of free speech, whatever that might be, right? These are things that are concerning, and so I think there's a lot of reasons to maybe be concerned about Facebook and stuff just based off of what kind of a company they are, like how they manage some of their policies and things like that, so that's just a whole nother conversation. But anyways, my original point that I was making, what brought me here, was that thought about how we need to make a point to do the things we want to do now, instead of always putting them off forever, like putting them off till later, like that 4-hour road trip that I wanted to make to go see something, why not do it today when I'm off today and I'm off tomorrow? It's one bucket list thing I can say I went and done. Or I could wait until something else is going on and I'm busy and life is happening and, I never made it there, right? But then there's also those other small things, the things that you want to do that maybe are easier to fit into your life, like playing a computer game. Yes, it takes a bunch of hours and stuff to get through a computer game, but it's pretty easy to find time to do it. I can play a computer game any evening of the week when I get off work. I can play a computer game tomorrow when it's my day off, and maybe I don't want to be out super late because I got to get up early in the morning, but I don't have anything I really have to do with my day tomorrow other than stuff around my apartment. So I could totally spend some time on the computer tomorrow, right? So that's where it's useful to take, take today and do that road trip, and then also be mindful to say, well, tomorrow I'm going to also spend that time doing that low-key stuff, doing the stuff that I just want to do because it's cool and it's close to home, or it's in my home. And for that, I'm reminded of that allegory of the jar with the big rocks and the little rocks, the pebbles, the gravel, the sand, the water. You can get them all into the jar if you put them in the right order. So on one hand, it's about making a point to say I'm not going to put off certain things forever, because I don't have forever. On one hand, it's about being present and mindful to say I'm going to celebrate what I'm doing today because I may never come this way again. But then it's also about saying I'm going to make a point for the smaller things, which I have time to do in the spaces between. Because it all matters. Social connection, the work we do, connecting with people, going to see new places and new things, and doing the small, interesting, creative things that just get our creative juices flowing. It all matters. And we have time for all of it if we put it into our lives in the right order. So don't put things off. Be more mindful. And also remember that even when you don't feel like you have unlimited time, you can always fit something into the empty space which isn't occupied by life's bigger commitments. Life is filled with tiny, perfect things. So let's make our quest to collect those. As many of those little tiny perfect things as we possibly can. And not just keep them under a bushel, like a light that is hidden. Let's see if we can find a way to share those things with others in a way that uplifts them. So that maybe those who are not going to be able to travel the way we have can still get a little bit of the value that we have gleaned. As always, a pleasure, and until next time, thanks so much.